Over the last 10 years, Julia Kirk has made a name for herself in the New Jersey indie music scene. Her ear for soulful covers and soothing original vocal jazz music has made her a rising star. Apart from being a massive fan of her gorgeously intricate instrumentation and vulnerable songwriting, I also have the honor of calling Julia a friend. While we go back to the old college days, it's Julia's most recent single, May, and the current live shows and her studio recording work that we focus on in our conversation. Julia is relaxed, warm, and wonderfully betrays the welcoming personality I've come to appreciate over the years. I really hope you enjoy the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the If Ever You're Listening podcast. I'm your host, Stanley C., and I have a very special guest today, Miss Julia Kirk. And I believe this is our first New Jersey based artist, which is a shame because as you guys know, I'm from New Jersey. So this is fantastic. And I also have known Julia for years, many years from college. So you were getting an artist from a unique perspective from me and also from New Jersey, which is great. I'm gonna try to do more New Jersey artists. So thank you so much, Julia, for coming. How are you doing today?
Anytime. I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, for the listeners, I've shared your music with them before. I don't know if a lot of them remember. This would be a little while ago, I think when Alter Ego came out. So
Oh, wow. Yeah.
it's a bit of
Ages
a
ago.
yeah, it's a bit of a throwback, years now.
Yeah.
And there has been new music since then, but I want to start way before that, kind of in the beginning. I want to learn more
Mm.
about where your music journey started. So tell me a little bit about how you were as a child and where music kind of fit in your life growing up.
Sure. Okay. As a child, like my mom just has really good taste in music, so exposed me to a lot of like Stevie Wonder. A lot She loved soul music, so a lot of Al Green, The Temptations, Michael Jackson, the usual suspects in the
Hmm.
soul and R&B world. And then as I got older, I was like in traditional music lessons. I took piano and violin and some guitar. But really it was like the lessons weren't for me. And I didn't have, the teachers were good. That just were very like, you need to do it by the books and you need to sight read music and, do it this way. And it's just not the way that I really gravitated towards learning. So I just thought music wasn't for me. When you're 8 years old and someone tells you that this is the only way you can learn music and it's not working for you, you think, oh, I'm just not good enough for that. So I stopped playing music, unfortunately, and I didn't really pick it back up until my 20s.
Wow.
So it was a bit of a delayed, I was kind of a late bloomer, I guess, if you think about, usually people start when they're 8 and then they
Mhm.
play until they're like now.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get that continuous timeline, but I'm glad it found me when it did. Better
Yeah.
late than never.
Yeah, better late than never.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, uh, God willing, you live a very, very, very long life. Like for the
Yeah.
most of your life, you'll be making music, and not that short period where you weren't making music.
Yes, I've gone too far to turn back now.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
So for that time period when you returned to music,
Hmm.
what was the impetus? What was the motivation to return? Was it the guitar? Was it an artist? Was it something that has?
Yeah, it was a couple things. I had a friend that we were starting to jam together. He was playing guitar and I was also like learning. I must have been like 22, 23. And he was like, "Oh, you should come to this open mic. There's this open mic here at this coffee shop." And so we started doing that, and I started doing open mics, and I was like, "Oh man, like this is really scary, but like it feels really good afterwards. I like performing." So it was like a desire to perform. And then um, I was working as a waitress, and there was a great musician who's a mentor to me now. His name is John Monica. He was playing at the restaurant that I was working at, and he saw a video of me singing at an open mic that I put online. And he was like, "You got to come do a song with me one of these days." And So eventually that happened and I started performing with him. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can like do what he does and like get paid to play covers at bars. And I kind of just haven't looked back since then because I've been doing that for a while, just playing gigs at bars, doing covers, of songs that I like that are popular. Um, so that kind of like was the hook to like draw me into it for sure.
No, that's super cool, and it's great to find mentors and people that are like willing to help you out. Because I feel like that's a big part of what a lot of people don't realize they
Oh
need.
yeah.
They need other people to help them.
You
Uh,
need yeah, you need a positive influence and someone to like motivate you and someone to like hold you accountable, but also like push you in a way that like I didn't want to sing with him. I was super nervous, but he kept asking me and then finally I did it and I was like, oh, that felt so good. And I want to do it again now, So and it was completely by chance too, which is I was just really lucky to be in the right place at the right time, meet this amazing musician who's still a mentor to me. Like we talk all the time. He gives me advice constantly. So, it's just lucky to be in the right place at the right time for that.
And speaking of covers, I think the first time I saw you really pushing the music in terms of promotion and the work that you do
Hmm.
in the cover space was during COVID when you were streaming it
Oh
online.
yeah. Yeah, that was
So I was curious about how that started. I was definitely in the comment section like cover
yeah,
baby.
you were. You were
Yeah.
very active. You were
So
asking me to play a lot of Big Thief songs and things that were like kind of off the beaten path that like I love. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I could do Big Thief.
and
Yeah,
crush it.
that was just a man, like the COVID thing with the quarantine and not being around people and not being able to work and do what I had been doing cover gigs at that point for like 5 years, I think. So like it was just I really missed performing and I missed that like interaction you get when like you play a song and someone likes it and says like, "Oh, that was amazing. Can you do this?" So, like, there's a back and forth between performer and audience members that I really missed. And I was like, I don't want to just play in my room to nobody. So let me do these live streams. It's like not quite the same as being in a room full of people and feeling that energy, but it's still a transference of something, and it was a positive way to help me pass the time and hopefully positive for the listeners to, you know, enjoy it. So yeah, it was a COVID baby.
It was a COVID baby.
Yeah.
It was good. It was highly recommend people if those recordings still exist. They were fun. They were good.
Oh yeah, they're on Facebook. You can
Yeah.
find them. We
Shout
can
out.
link them if you want.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll try to
Yeah.
find them and actually link them in
Yeah.
any
Cool.
link you want me to
Yeah,
share.
I'll send them to you.
Cool. The other thing I wanted to ask about was the covers when you're going to these different venues and different bars. Kind of what were some things you were nervous about that turned out weren't that big of a deal, and then what were maybe some unexpected things that you ended up really liking from the experience that you still like from the experience?
Mm. I think in the beginning I was very like, oh, I need to play songs people know. And you do to a degree, right? Like you need to play things that like are recognizable.
Mhm.
Um, the key when covering music is like you want to cover a song as if you wrote it yourself. I think. I mean, at least for like a solo performer, if you're in like a wedding band, obviously you want to stick to like make it sound like the original recording or the original band. But when you're just like you and the guitar or you and just like an instrument and it's just one person, you have a lot of freedom to kind of make it your own. And so I try to like cover songs that people know, but like do it in a way that, oh, if I wrote it, I would sing it like this. I would play it like this. I would slow it down here. I would speed it up here. I'd be mellow with it. I think that's cool because then people don't realize what you're playing until halfway through the song, and then they're like, "Oh, it's that song. What an interesting interpretation." It's you can get really creative with covers, and it's not karaoke, right? You want to do it your way and people respond to it if you kind of feel it. So I still pick songs that are recognizable, but I try to pick things that I like, and just play it the way I play it. I'm not trying to sound like the records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could confirm this for the viewer. Even when she would cover the Big Thief songs I kept throwing at her, she would kind of play them in different keys. They weren't like the exact same key. And at
Mhm.
the beginning, I was like, I wanted it the original. And then I was like, wait, no, there's something else going on that she's doing. It's actually harder to do what she did. And it makes it its own thing away from the original, which is awesome.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
very cool. So for uh the guitar. I want to talk a little bit about the guitar because that is your main instrument.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
love
and I
it.
do remember you playing it when we were in college. Um, and now that I'm like looking back, I was like writing notes. I was like, all right, where does the guitar fit in this? Because you learned it as a kid, but then it became the primary instrument as an adult, and then you took music more seriously. So, um,
Mm.
how was learning the guitar, taking a break, picking it back up, creating your own sound? We'll talk more about your sound because you do have your own unique sound. How did that kind of form over time?
Oh man. I've always loved it. I don't know, something about the portability of it. You can just, put it in a bag that goes over your shoulders and walk around with it. It's like a really portable instrument. So just for a lazy person's standpoint, it was just a really, it made the most sense. Like lugging a big keyboard around is way harder than just taking a guitar and bringing it to the campfire or whatever. But I've always just loved the guitar. I love how like when you first learn how to play the guitar, it's super painful. It's super awkward. You have to like move your hand in a weird way, and the strings like really hurt your fingers until over time you like build some strength in your fingertips and calluses, and that helps. So it's like a very delayed gratification. Like if you're learning the guitar, everybody will attest to this. Like you sound really bad at first. It takes a while to get better at it, but then once you get it, it's like, oh man, there's a reason why everybody plays the guitar. It's the coolest instrument. And there's so much you can do with it. Like for example, now I'm really experimenting with like alternate tunings, and that's like a whole world. And Big Thief does that,
Yeah.
huge influence. She's always playing in weird tunings, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful instrument. It changes the instrument completely. So I just love it. It's so versatile. It's so powerful. It can be really chill, but then you get an electric guitar and some distortion pedals and it can be wild. You can do so much with it. And so I just love it. And during COVID, that's when I kind of was really digging into just getting better with the guitar. And I like singing, but I don't like singing as much as I love playing the guitar to the
Great.
point where if I'm home and the TV's on and I'm on the couch, like of course I'm gonna have a guitar with me. Like I'll watch TV and just play. Like I'm not even realizing what I'm doing. It's just always there. I don't feel
Mm,
that way about any other instrument. I play a little bit of piano. I like to sing, but like none of them have my heart like the guitar does. The guitar is just a special instrument.
no, I love that. Now you're a true
Yeah.
guitarist. Almost maybe that's would you consider yourself a guitarist? Because I know some people play like they're singers, but they could play the guitar. Do you consider
Uh,
guitarist?
yeah, I do. I mean, I'm not like Jimi Hendrix or whatever, but I love that stuff and I try to play it. But yeah, I think I would consider myself more of a guitarist than a vocalist for
Yeah.
sure. The vocalization, like that's just like, oh, I need to sing. Like
Mm,
otherwise, you know, I can't just play the guitar. I gotta sing too. It's like an
yeah.
obligation, but I don't consider myself a vocalist. I do consider myself a guitarist. Yeah, I love it.
Very cool. Because now, and correct me if I'm wrong, now you're doing
Mm.
studio sessions, you're recording in the studio, like for other artists. If
Hmm.
so, how did that kind of begin? Because then that allows you to kind of just be a guitarist. You don't have to be, you don't have to sing.
Yeah, yeah. Studio stuff is great. So I love to collaborate in the studio. So I've done guitar work for people. I've done like vocal stuff for people too. Like I've had people write songs and say like I want a woman to sing this. Like can you do this? And then I've sang over people's songs. I played bass for a band that I play bass with called Victor Digital. We have sessions that I played bass for. So I like this. The studio is a different kind of performance because it's recorded, right? So that knowledge of it being recorded and trying to get it right, it's a different mentality versus like just performing. Performance can be a little more free because you're not trying to get anything perfect, you're just in it. And
Mhm.
then the studio, it's a little bit more like work, but it's a good challenge and I enjoy it. I enjoy it. It took me a long time to enjoy it. And I still get nervous for studio sessions, but um yeah, it's super fun. And then to record my own stuff too is I'm not a perfectionist by any means, but you do want to get things a certain way. You want to nail things a certain way because it's, as permanent as it can be, right? So the studio is it's a beast, man. It's a whole different skill set as a musician. You really need to you can't just go into I mean, I guess some musicians do just go into the studio without a plan and just nail it. But that takes being a musician for decades, which I don't have that yet. So,
Not yet, not
you
yet.
need to kind of have to prepare for the studio sessions more than like regular performances, I guess.
Mm. And when you
Yeah.
go in for your own stuff, um, what is kind of your goal? What is your mission? What type of sound do you want to have for your stuff? Because I hear a lot of influences and sounds, but I want to hear kind of how would you describe it for your own?
Huh. I don't know. I mean, um, I don't think I maybe I should think about that more, but I try not to because I just want to get I have songs. I just
Mm.
want to get the songs like, in their form. And I'm not really trying to sound like anything else. I think everybody is a conglomeration of all of the things that they're influenced by, right? We all steal without realizing it. And like, you know, so I guess I steal from a lot of soul music, but I like folk and I like indie rock and Big Thief and Hiatus Coyote and
Mm.
Stevie Wonder and I love hard rock music too, but my music doesn't come out that way, but I still that influence is in there somewhere, so I just love music so much and I love jazz too. So it's just all like a mix of the things I love and I'm not trying to sound like anyone or any one type of genre or thing. I just write and then I just record it. And I usually record with a band in the room too, and that just brings a whole nother element of changing the texture of the sound. I think when you record live with a band, it's like a different energy, and you can hear it on these recordings. And that's really special. So yeah, it's just kind of like I don't think too much about what I'm going for. I'm just trying to do the damn thing. you know?
No, and you're doing
Yeah.
the damn thing. Because
Yeah.
when you're
Thanks.
in the studio, you're the music for people who I'm gonna share Julia's music, but it is like this beautiful live instrumentation when I'm hearing it. It's like I call it like indie rock meets jazz
Hmm.
meets
Ah, cool.
bossa
Thanks.
nova, and then there's Julia in the middle singing. And so I'm curious. I was like, what does it look like when she's in there? Like, are you like directing people like, oh no, 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 this section do that. Come on, guys, I need this. Or is it like you're jamming and it kind of comes together organically? Because
Dude,
you're
it just comes together organically. It's funny. I like work with musicians that have been doing this for way longer than I have, like decades. They've put in the work, and
Mm.
I'm kind of like still like peeking through the door and like seeing if I can like actually do this thing. I'm pretty new. I have maybe like the better part of a decade of playing music consistently, which seems like a lot, but then I have friends that have been doing this for 30 years. So it's when I work with people like that, and I'm so blessed to have that sort of have these friends that have this experience and wisdom, and they are so cool with passing down the knowledge. So I really don't give them too much direction because I don't need to. They just play, and I'm like, that is exactly what I wanted. Thank you. you know?
Please,
it's
and
a it's just it is organic as it can be, and I think it should be that way. There are certain people that, and I think as I get better as a musician and as a writer, I will have more direction in the future, but I'm still just so new at this that I'm just happy people want to play with me.
No.
I'm just happy I have friends.
Yeah, I love that. That's funny. Well, you're really good.
Yeah.
That's why they probably like
Uh,
you, because you're also really good at what you do. Um,
Cheers, thank you.
so okay, that's exciting. So
Mhm.
for the fans or for the people that are you're growing your support base, people are listening to you. We'll link your website. You have a great website where you have a lot of your content on there, and you have a
Mm,
calendar where you have where if you want to see me, I'm going to be at these places.
yeah.
Is there like a vision in the future, like an EP, an album, or is that too far away for you to want to think about it? Or what are your kind of long-term plans?
Yeah, so me and my drummer slash engineer producer, his name's John Roccasano. We've been working on this EP for a minute, and it's self-funded, so it's expensive to record. So we've been taking our time with it, but we're nearly finished. We've got about 4 or 5 songs
Ooh.
that will probably be released next year, hopefully sooner than later. I just released a single and that felt really good, and I'm really proud of it. So I'm kind of like eager to get the rest out. So I'm thinking it'll be soon, maybe March or April. So
Exclusive.
yeah, we'll see.
This
Loose timeline. But
timeline. Breaking news, Julia Kirk, new single.
uh,
No, no, no. No, that's exciting. That's amazing. And
mhm.
like I was saying, like during COVID, now that was 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I've been watching, I've been paying attention, and I think it's time. I think the people want it. I want it. Uh, and the single you just dropped, May, um, kind of how was it recording that song? I was playing it a lot before this
Yeah.
day, like I was playing it today. I was really liking it, really liking the harmonies, really liking the guitars on there. And I like the message on there. So talk a little bit about kind of what were you going through, kind of the songwriting process and the song itself.
Sure, sure. That's a song about seasonal depression, which we're in the middle of December, so I'm definitely feeling that, which is kind of why I wanted to release it. I didn't want to release it in the summer or spring. I wanted to release it, at the time where people might need to hear that message of just like, this weather, everything's bleak. There's not a lot of sun. I'm feeling low. But then the month of May comes around, and that's like the magic time where like it's not raining as much, the sun is out more, summer's around the corner, flowers are blooming, children are playing outside. That just has a better effect on your mental health. So May is that like month where I'm like, I can't wait till things get brighter. Um, and in the meantime, I just try to keep myself busy in the winter. Not one day I'll be a snowbird, but for now, I'm roughing it out in Jersey in this tough winter. And so yeah, I wrote that song about that. It's just about, seasonal depression. May is just like a magic time where that ends. But really cool. I wrote that song and I was like, oh, no one wants to hear these songs about depression. I was going to throw it away, but I decided there's a really cool thing in Jersey City where this man, Frank Ippolito, he hosts a bunch of songwriters. He calls it the Spaghetti Sessions, and everybody shares a song with other musicians in his like beautiful home that's like a giant loft. And you share a song, and then everybody like kind of critiques it or just instantly tells you how they feel about it. So you get that face to face like interaction immediately. And then at the end of the spaghetti session, we all eat spaghetti. His wife makes everybody spaghetti and we eat spaghetti. It's a magical evening. They don't do it, they haven't done it since COVID, but hopefully maybe they'll start to do that again. So I was going to throw that song away, but I decided to play it at the spaghetti session just to hear some feedback.
Mhm.
And it turns out like everybody was like really receptive to it. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something here, and I kept it around all these years since then. So
Wow.
it just goes to show like you can be your own worst critic when it comes to making music or making art. And like you really, before you throw anything away or just like toss it aside or like forget about it, get some feedback,
Mhm.
instant feedback too. Like whether that means putting it online, showing a friend, sending it to someone, and just asking for like, what do you think? It's a hard thing to do that as an artist, right? Because we're so sensitive. And we don't want to hear, oh, I didn't quite get that, or I don't know. You don't want to hear something bad, but you gotta open it up for interpretation before you decide what to do with it. I think is really important, and it's a uh really important thing for artists to do. And I don't think a lot of them do that. It's uncomfortable to seek feedback right away, especially when you're not finished with something. But that feedback can actually like help you finish the thing in
Mhm.
the best way possible. And it's also just like good to know how people feel about certain things, how receptive they are to something, or how you can't gauge that stuff until you share it. So it's important to do that. So yeah, again, I'm just grateful I had that opportunity to like be a part of that event, share that song, and then that kind of led me to like complete it, finish it, put it out.
And now it's out. No, and
Now it's out.
I think that's a very important message what you just shared. I want to kind of like sit with that for a little bit. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people that read my stuff and now start watching these podcasts, they are artists. They're newer artists. They're independent artists. They're looking for advice, looking for ways to get attention and grow their
Mm-hmm.
brand and grow their so little little beat pieces of advice like that I think are very valuable. So I want to thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
And shout out the spaghetti sessions. I love that. He needs
I,
to
I
definitely.
really hope he does it again soon because it was so magic. And you just bring a bottle of wine and everybody, and it's a room full of artists. So yeah, there's some weird types, but we're all like, we're all weird together, and we're all just here to listen and just give each other some feedback. That's a community right there. Community is so important for artists. We need that. We
Does
need
art
that. We're an interesting type of person, and we need to be around other people,
yes.
that are like
That
that,
so that we don't feel so
so we
weird.
don't feel crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big that helped me years ago when I was writing about music and I
Mm.
felt like I was just in my own head and then I met other music writers and I just felt so seen and understood and I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not just writing for the sake of writing. Like there are other people like this. We like sharing. We can't share too
Yeah.
with normal
The-
people because normal people are like, all right, I heard that song. I don't care that much. But other music writers, we could talk about one song for 3 hours and that's okay.
Forever,
Forever.
literally. Like
Um,
I would love to. We could just do a podcast episode about like a Radiohead song or
I know.
something. I'll go on forever.
I would love
Yeah,
to.
I agree. We hyperfixate. We're a special type of breed, I think.
One
Yeah,
of my goals
and
is
not everybody gets that. You
no,
know.
no, they don't. One of my maybe goals, maybe next year will be
Mhm.
to have a an episode with other artists speaking with each other about a topic, and we all just like connect on that one topic. I think that would be cool. Like the
Very cool. Yeah, have musicians talk about our crazy lives, and
yeah, like a
yeah,
panel.
that would be really cool.
Um, for now, my next four, like my last four questions, I call them my IEYL questions. So this is the If Ever You're Listening podcast, IEYL for short. And these are questions I ask all of the guests, regardless of your background and whether you're like a
Hmm.
writer or work in the record industry or a musician. Um, and they're for the listener kind of advice for them and kind of big picture stuff. So all of my specific Julia questions, you've answered all of them. So thank you so much.
Cool. No worries. Great questions, by the way.
Oh, no problem. No problem. So first one is a fun question. What are you listening to these days? What was I should change this for December. What was in your Spotify Wrapped or Apple?
Oh, so yeah, I don't listen to Spotify. I've got Apple Music. But let me pull up. I'm so bad at calling upon what I've been listening to because it constantly changes, but I can tell you I've been listening to it's quite a weird mix. Soundgarden. I do albums. Like I like to listen to albums from beginning to end, the way the artist wants you to. I'm and I drive a lot for work, so
Mhm.
I love albums. Like I don't really do playlists unless I'm like around people at a party and I throw on a playlist. So like it's just a mix. But when I'm alone and I listen to music, I go hard into the album. So I'm listening to Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger, Sarah Vaughan, New Jersey's finest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah Vaughan, self-titled album.
Mhm.
Kate Bush, The Sensual World.
Nice.
Mos Def, Black on Both Sides.
Yeah.
Great hip hop record. I That's like one of those hip hop records that I circle back to often. Have you ever listened to that one?
Oh, yeah, I grew up with that album. I love that album. It just
It's
makes
just
it's very deep. Like the
it's
topics
so,
he's
I mean,
unpacked.
well, we start with like he raps about hip hop, then he goes to a song about love and the love for writing, and then Miss
Mhm.
Fat Booty, he talks about how this girl played him.
Yeah,
And then
love
speed law,
that.
like don't get mad, you're speeding, just slow down. Like it's just like the arc of the album is such good storytelling and such good delivery. He's just genius.
He's
It's
just,
genius from
yeah.
beginning to end. And then he also like gives you the experience of like, oh, rock and roll was created by black people. Like
Mhm.
this is the truth.
Yeah.
Like to be black and to be a musician, that's rock and roll. Like not
Mhm.
the Rolling Stones. Like, and he like it's good to hear that, as a white woman that doesn't really I don't understand that experience or, what it's like to live as a black man. Like, you know, he lays it out for you in a way that like, oh man, like that's your experience. Like that's really hard to do, I think.
It is because it could come across as like angry or bitter,
Right,
um,
right,
rather
right.
than like open and you're sharing. And he
Yep.
does it in a very like open and I'm sharing and like, no, I want you guys to know, not like
Yeah.
it's your fault. And
Yeah.
mostly like
Right.
he's a master at that. Yeah, he's
Yes. Magic. Magic. I love that record. And then I'm listening to Angelica Garcia. She's like a Mexican American singer-songwriter. She makes cool music. I'll send you some stuff. I don't know if
yeah.
you've ever heard her.
I don't think so.
It's weird, and this album in particular is in Spanish mostly, but it sounds so good. Oh, I really need to learn Spanish because I'm listening to a lot of music in Spanish, and it's just sexy.
It's so
Like
hot. It's so
it's
hot.
so hot.
So hot.
I think I want to start like singing in Spanish. Like I know Linda Ronstadt.
Mhm.
She did like a whole mariachi album, and I was listening to a podcast about that, and apparently she didn't speak Spanish at all, but she sang the shit out of those songs, and people would come up to her and like express in Spanish like, oh my god, that was so good, like in Spanish, and she'd be like, no, 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 I don't speak Spanish, but like they believed it by her sing. Like I don't know, I think that's just cool. It's
That's so
cool.
cool. Shout out Linda Ronstadt. I did not think we were gonna go down the Linda Ronstadt. I was just
I
writing
love
about
Linda
her. I
Ronstadt,
know.
man,
Well,
one of the best vocalists
of the
out there.
20th century.
I
Yeah.
wish she could still sing.
I know. Yeah, that's sad, but she's incredible. She's absolutely
Yeah,
incredible. Wow.
legendary. Yeah,
Legendary.
yeah,
I love the variety there.
yeah. That's weird.
No, it's good. It's awesome.
Yeah, jazz, rock, hip hop. It's all in there.
Latin music. Okay,
Yeah.
so fantastic. So my second question is, um, I wrote way too many words. I need to like cut that question down.
No, I love words. Keep them coming.
It's
Keep them
long.
coming.
It's a this is what I
Say it
wrote.
really fast.
I was like,
10
this
seconds.
is it. Well,
Yeah.
this question is for tips for artists starting out. So maybe you 10 years ago at that point, um,
Oh,
who
okay.
love playing music, but they don't have connections. They don't have the mentor you mentioned earlier. How do they get their feet wet and play in front of people when they've never played in front of people before? They've only played in their bedroom or maybe with their friends.
Okay. Okay. This is good. Do open mics, do live jams, look online. You can find them really easily. There's like websites that like just list like open mics in your area, and you can just like find coffee shops that do like a Sunday night open mic or whatever, and just get yourself out there. It's the best way to network. It's the best way to meet other musicians. Also, stakes are kind of low. A lot of people are starting out, so you don't need to be like great. It's just an open mic. You just show up and you play, and everybody listens and everybody claps, and like you get that validation and that warmth. very rare times where it's intimidating. It's always really, and then you get part of a community in that way. So just do as many performances as you can, you know, as many open mics, even like live band karaoke. You can go into New York City and find that pretty easily. That stuff is great too, because then you get to sing with a band and kind of like get the whole musician dynamic. Being on stage with other people is a good thing to learn. And that's something I wish I did more of because I started out playing solo and I still play solo a lot. So, you know, um, getting your feet wet with like working with other musicians and open jams and live band karaoke, like that's a good way to just get into the performing world, catch the bug, and then you won't want to stop. It's amazing. So yeah, just do as much as you can with the performing, I think.
I think that's great advice. I think that's really great
Yeah.
advice. Thank you so much. And if you could change anything about the music industry as you understand it right now, maybe from your experience, what would it be and why?
Oh man. Um, that's tough. That's a good question. It seems like there's so much emphasis on the artist doing everything themselves, right? You need a home studio, which you should have, and I should have. I should really get into that. You know, you need to make your own music at home before you bring it to the studio, but also you need to do all your social media stuff and you need to create your own content. And then you also need to manage yourself. And like, it's really hard to do the DIY thing, and there's such an emphasis on that because you know with the internet it's so easy to just kind of put things online, but that creates a lot of pressure, I think, for the artists, and then I think they lose sight of the meaning of the work because they're too busy trying to push it out there, and I think that can be tough. And then you know there's still record deals happening, but they're shady and you have to really get a lawyer and look over that stuff. And then of course with streaming, uh, the artists don't make a lot of money from that, you know, model. That platform just isn't in the best interest of the art. You know, the money goes somewhere else. And unless you can get like a lot of streams, like Billie Eilish level streams, you really don't see a lot of money from that. So it's like we're forced to put all this work into it to make a machine that doesn't run well because we're not getting anything back from it. So it's kind of like Sisyphus rolling the boulder up the hill. Like that's what it is to be an artist nowadays. It's really hard. And I find myself just not even doing it really for the money. I just do it because I love it. But you know, I'm not really interested in putting in all that work because I don't think I'm going to get anything back. And that's like a tough place to be in. And it's not a good place to be in. I should be more um, apt about trying to be better with the content, be better with, you know, getting my music on playlists. But it's hard to do it all yourself. You know, you kind of need some help. So I think that's the greatest challenge that we face today as artists. It's tough.
It's
It's not
tough.
easy.
No,
It's a
yeah.
full-time job on top
It's
of all the other jobs that you need to do in your life, you know?
Yep. And 99%, 90% of the artists I talk to, they have full-time jobs out and they
Yeah,
do music.
me
It's
too.
like
Yeah.
so you know exactly the real struggle.
Yeah.
So and I do notice that with you, you do a lot of like the in-person stuff. Like you're doing the live shows, but you're not necessarily like sharing it out. Um
Yeah.
and I was curious about that before we got on this call. So that this it's good to know you do that on purpose because you're like, I'm not, it's not worth my time. That's
Yeah,
it
well,
would take time
I'm
away from
also
me.
lazy.
Yeah.
It's laziness too. It's I find social media to be a really detrimental thing, as we know it is. And so like the more time I spend on there trying to push out myself, you know, like trying to promote myself, it just makes me feel weird. I know it's a necessary part of it and I do it from time to time, but very selectively because I just don't like that's not what the music's about for me. You know, a lot of people do like doing that. They do like that aspect of it and they're good at it. And it is a really good way to get your stuff out there to an audience that you wouldn't normally. So I should make more use of it, but it's just not not my bag. I was talking with a friend about this and we were both like we almost want to hire someone to do it for us just so we can like focus on the art and not have to
Yeah.
like
Yep.
and maybe that's the move for me. I just the thought of paying someone to do my social media is just seems
Crazy.
silly,
Yeah.
but it is a necessary part of it. So
Yes.
it's something I'll think about, but I would probably just do it myself, bite the bullet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can like try to see you trying to manage the person. You're just like, do what you need to do, dude. And
Yeah, I mean, I would be the one that wouldn't even check it. They would put
uh,
whatever on there. Be like, yeah, whatever. Sure.
but no, I
Yeah,
think that would help you. I think that would do great work. That would help a lot. Even if you do it for like
I
two
think so
months,
too.
hire the
Yeah.
person for 2 months and then see what happens. And they might be really, you might see such a big change. You're like, oh, okay, this might be a little bit more worth it. But
Yeah. New Year's resolution. I'll
yeah,
on that.
I love it. No, but my last question is on a more positive note because I always that question always gets a lot of it's supposed to be a negative
It's
answer.
a heavy
It's a
question.
heavy
Yeah,
question. And
yeah,
sometimes I get artists that like almost cry, like they get really, really emotional. Um,
yeah.
because the music industry it does take more than it gives to artists that gives most of the time
It
get
always has too. I mean, it
yeah, it's
always
always been
has,
like
you know. Yeah.
it's just the taker has changed. It went from like, oh, I guess it's still this person behind a desk at like a label
Mm,
to a person behind a desk behind a streaming service. And
yes.
so uh maybe the person's the exact same, but it's always somebody up there.
Yeah.
Um, but my last question is more inspirational, motivational as like a ending message. What at this point in your career, what has been the best advice you've been given?
Best advice I've been given. There's no good or bad. Just get to that place every time. You know, when you pick up the instrument, when you go to a gig, when you go to a studio session, or even when you just put on headphones and listen to something. Don't like get into the whole subjective of does this sound good? Does this sound bad? Do I sound good? Am I meant to be doing just like do whatever you need to do to get to that place and you'll get something out of it. And someone will feel it and also get something out of it. So just get to that place. If that makes sense. I don't know. It's hard to describe if you don't play or actively make some sort of art. Although I don't think there's such a thing as like creatives. Like, you know how people say, like, I'm a creative. Like, no, to be human is to be creative. We
Mhm.
all have some sort of creative talent. Some people are more in tune with it than others, and some people have yet to find what they're good at creatively. But we all have like a creative instinct. We create things, we create people. We're humans. Like, that's just what we do. So, whatever you're doing in your creative element, whatever it is, just get to that place, get lost in it, find that flow state, and just lose yourself in it to the point where you don't check your phone. 3 hours have passed and you're still working on this song, or you're still, I don't know, like making that pottery bowl. I don't know, like whatever helps you get to that place, get there as much as you can. That's the best advice I've gotten, and I try to do that, and it is always a rewarding thing because it gets you out of your head and stops you thinking about your ego. Am I good? Am I bad? Am I doing the right thing? I need more money. Like, no, just get to that place.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Julia Kirk. Thank you so much, Julia. That was fantastic. And I think
Enjoy.
a very, very good piece of advice that even
Yeah.
I'll take a piece of that as well. So thank you again
Yeah.
and talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.